Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we meet on this afternoon and the Wiradjuri people, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. We have got a significant gallery, so I'd like to let everyone know that council meetings are being live streamed and recorded in line with Hilltops Council policy. What that means for councillors and members of the public and anyone that's speaking in public forum is you will be recorded, and it will be live streamed. So in the sense of being cautious, just be aware of the ramifications of something that can be said and is live streamed and can be recorded. In case of an emergency, and I hope that's not the case, but the procedure is back out through the door you came to, turn right and out to the road to wait further instructions. Item 3 on our agenda is the public forum, and we have a number of speakers tonight at open forum. How that works is each speaker will be given 5 minutes to present their case to council. I'll give a little warning tap or sign at 4 minutes to let you aware that time's running down. Because we have a number of speakers, I probably won't be too generous in letting that time run over, depending on the circumstances. So the first speaker down for tonight and to speak about the notice of motion on the Harden Tennis Club is Bronwyn Ryan. Bronwyn.
Hi, I'm Bronwyn Ryan, Treasurer of the Harden Tennis Club. Unfortunately, our President, James Holding, couldn't be here tonight, so I'm here on behalf of the club to clarify the inaccuracies put forward in the motion by Councillor Stadmiller. The Harden Tennis Club is an incorporated body and is affiliated with Tennis New South Wales. The courts have been in disrepair for a number of years. In 2007, it was recognised that the courts needed a major upgrade. Due to the major financial input required for the necessary upgrade, a number of temporary maintenance procedures have been put in place to hold the courts in a playable condition. 5 years ago, we realised the cracks in the courts could no longer be continuously repaired and needed a major upgrade to ensure the future safety of players. Since then, we have been investigating upgrading the existing courts, as well as discussions with local schools, Harden Country Club, netball and basketball clubs and council about possible other locations for multi-purpose courts. There was a voting process held with the Harden Tennis Club members, and the majority voted yes to move the courts to a more appropriate site for multi-purpose courts, as this would better service the community. It was decided that the best site to have multi-purpose courts was the country club. The current tennis courts are operated and maintained by the Harden Tennis Club. The land on which the courts are on is Crown land, on which we have a lease with council. We pay rates for services, water, electricity, sewage and garbage. All maintenance and upgrades have always been funded by the club through grants, membership and fundraising. In 2016-17, there was money made available via the Stronger Community Grants, which we were successful in obtaining. Whilst we're still investigating the options available to us, we have signed a memorandum of understanding with the Harden Country Club. If we move the courts, the tennis club plans to have 2 tennis-only designated courts and 2 multi-purpose courts, all with more appropriate user-friendly surfaces. We will remain independent of the Harden Country Club, and we will have a lease arrangement similar to the one we currently have now with Hilltops Shire. It is important to us as a club that all members of the public have access to the courts regardless of their affiliation with the club. All upgrades and maintenance will continue to be the responsibility of the Harden Tennis Club. The club will continue to have all its insurances covered by Tennis New South Wales, so all members of the public have safe access to the courts now and into the future. We would like to stress that this is important to us as a club to ensure that we are able to provide a facility which continues to embody and strengthen the sporting and community spirit of the Hilltop Shire. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Bronwyn. The second speaker on the same notice of motion is June Howe.
I'm sorry, but I can't better that, I don't suppose. But I'm all for leaving the courts where they are, because I'm afraid that if they move up the top there, it'll just fall into disrepair and nobody will care about them. And it's nice to drive into a town and see tennis courts where you know where you can go and have a game instead of them being up at the country club. We've been members for a long, long time. There's not a lot of social players, but they do play more at night time. And the ones that play do really enjoy it there, where we are. Yeah, so that's about what I can say. I hope they stay where they are.
Thank you very much. June. The next speaker tonight on item 18234 will be Andrew Jarrett.
Good evening, councillors. My name is Andrew Jarrett. Together with my wife Tracy, we are proposing to build an industrial shed on 8E Altamore Road, Young. I would just like to speak briefly about the letter that we have submitted to council for consideration at this meeting. The first thing we would like you to consider is the enormous figure of $8,360.90, which is council's contribution fee. We believe a figure of $2,122.56 is a more realistic amount, which is based on the shed office area only, which doesn't include the driveway, etc. Our other issue is the apparent lack of consistency with council's demands with property accesses. Within a 200-metre distance, we will now have 3 different driveway sizes, one 6 metre, one 10 metres, and now you want ours to be 10 metres to our front entrance and a further 10 metres beyond our front boundary, 20 metres in total. The most recent industrial building on the TEMORA road has no concreted sealed entrance at all or no designated car parking area. As we have mentioned in our letter, we have no problem following the guidelines to construct our shed and property to best practice, but we feel this fee is unfair and excessive, and the driveway you are asking us to construct is ridiculous. Young Council realise asking developers to pay these huge Does Council realise asking developers to pay these huge fees is a major deterrent to new and existing businesses to build or expand in Hilltops Shire? We have owned this property for 7 years and there has been no infrastructure improvements done by Council in the industrial area in that time. Does Council want development for Young? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Andrew. Welcome, Councillor Flannery. The next speaker in open forum in regard to item 18235 is Jim Ryan. Welcome, Jim.
Mr Mayor, as the independent chair of the Community Liaison Committee Sibelco meetings, I urge Council to use its power as the road authority to acquire the 510 square metres required to enable the Sibelco to proceed with the upgrade of the GRIFFIN Way, Boyo Road, Limestone Way intersection. Sibelco have been trying for at least 3 years to implement this upgrade. They now have an approved design and a contractor ready to start, but can't because Union Agriculture refused to sell 510 square metres. That's 1/20th of a hectare on a property of some 4,000 hectares. The land required comprises a corner and one paddock and a slight straightening of a fence that would have no impact on the operation of the property. This is a dangerous intersection, and the improvements will improve the safety of everyone using these roads. Failure to implement this upgrade will also impact on the availability of agricultural lime, and that would seriously impact on the wealth generated within this shire. And agriculture is the biggest wealth generator in this shire. I can confidently say that the upgrade is a priority with both the Community Liaison Committee and with Sibelco, and at this stage, time is of the essence. The quickest, and in fact as RMS will not assist Sibelco in trying to acquire this land, the only way this upgrade can proceed is if Council uses its power as a road authority to acquire the required 1/20th of a hectare of land. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Jim. The next speaker on item 18235 will be John Flannery. Nope. Trish Murphy. Thank you. Joe.
Thank you, everyone. First of all, I just want to say I'm a farmer in Galong and very much in support of lime and jobs in the district. However, it can't come at the cost of due process. Council responsibility and safety must be adhered to. I just want to read to you 3 quotes, and they're all written by Council. The first one is that in granting a development consent, a condition was imposed that required the upgrading of the Limestone Way and Burley Griffin. So it was a condition of consent to continue to operate from 200,000 tonnes to 320,000 tonnes. The second thing that I would like to just quote to you is Council has not taken any action to date regarding the breach of consent. They have recognised there is a breach of consent. The third thing I would like to read to you also comes from a Council staff member, and it says, Council needs to consider if the intersection as it presently exists is to a suitable standard that would allow additional heavy vehicle movements. They have written clearly the answer is no. Your own staff have advised you that this intersection is dangerous. You are in breach of Council DA consent. So my message to you as councillors is that you seriously need to consider your corporate governance responsibilities. I hate to say this to you, but you do. You have a DA in breach that is dangerous. You are putting the ratepayers' safety at risk. You are also putting their legal and financially at risk by not following due process on this issue. I think you seriously need to consider how you manage this DA in the process while you move to acquire this land. The community is in support of acquiring the land, but you have a breach in the meantime. You should be honouring those conditions of consent and considering telling Sibelco that they are in breach and that they need to stop haulage immediately. Thank you.
Thank you, Trish. The next speaker I have down for item 18235 is Ben Jones, Sibelco. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, Deputy Mayor and Councillors for the opportunity to address you this evening. My name is Ben Jones, Development Manager with Blueprint Australia. This evening I wish to speak on behalf of Sibelco and in support of the business paper being considered by Council this evening relating to the Burley Griffin Way intersection upgrade works and the options available to Council to assist Sibelco with progressing these important works. Firstly, may I state that Sibelco remain committed to delivering the proposed Burley Griffin intersection upgrade works as designed and in accordance with its development consent conditions. Sibelco are extremely eager to commence construction of these works as soon as possible, and hence we are supportive of the paper before you this evening. You'll note from the paper that Sibelco, via its consultant GHD, and in relation to this particular project, has progressed the design of the proposed upgrade works significantly since commencing design works in late 2015, has consulted with RMS extensively throughout a 3-year design process, taking into consideration RMS feedback, commentary requirements, and indeed the feedback of a formal and documented road safety audit process. We've recently obtained advice from RMS of, in principle, layout and configuration approval, what they refer to as geometric concurrence. That is not the final formal approval that is required, but it is a step in the right direction, and it is an acknowledgement of the current design in their opinion, and it may be a particular division within RMS of that particular design being relevant and being appropriate. We have received and we're ready to enter into a formal agreement with RMS, a works authorisation deed relating to those works, and that will then trigger us to allow us to secure our final approval. We've conducted a competitive market tender process for the works as designed. We've identified a preferred contractor, and in short, we've progressed the project to a point where we're ready to engage a contractor, to engage that RMS agreement, to complete the RMS approval process, and to commence the works. Unfortunately, our ability to finalise these particular items is being hampered by our inability to successfully negotiate the acquisition of 2 small parcels of land from the private owner, despite the fact that Sibelco have offered approximately 3 times the market value for these 2 small parcels of land, that we've funded the survey, valuation and the legal costs to date to enable that transaction to occur should they be agreeable. We've offered to fund reasonable vendor costs, valuation and legal, and we've offered to reinstate the boundary fencing upon completion of the acquisition and the construction process. Whilst in principle agreement was reached with the owner's Australian-based representative earlier this year, unfortunately that individual no longer works with the owner, and the owner's head office in Beijing have refused to sell the land, have refused to negotiate the matter, and indeed have refused to meet us on site in September. The absence of securing this land, as I said, is preventing Sibelco from executing a works contract, from entering into that agreement with RMS, from securing the final design approvals and commencing the on-site works. We do wish to satisfy our obligation under our development consent. We believe we're doing all things reasonable within our power to progress the works, and notwithstanding the fact we're unable to secure this land, we continue to do so. Therefore, Sibelco supports this paper put forward to you this evening, and we respectfully request that Council give due consideration to the options available to assist Sibelco in progressing these works as designed, so as to not only facilitate Sibelco's continued supply of ag lime and other products to local farmers and local industry, but to
You've got a minute, Ben.
deliver
Yep.
improved road safety conditions to the Galong, Harden and Hilltops community, other light and heavy vehicle users who use this intersection, and the general public. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, I believe that's the last speaker that we had to speak in open forum. So thank you to all those speakers. Very shortly, I will ask Council for a procedural motion to move those items forward for you. We just have to do a couple of other items first. The next one being apologies. Have we got any apologies around the table?
Sharon Lingman.
There's an apology from Sharon Lingman,
Yes, and we have Larissa Hackett in her place.
and Larissa is kindly taking the hot seat tonight
Yep.
in Sharon's absence. Could I have a move for that apology, DP? Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Seconded, Councillor Flannery. All those in favour? Aye. Thank you. Could the councillors and public please be upstanding for our expressions of sympathy, please? Moment of silence. We would like to express our sympathy for the passings of Robert Smith, Joan Hanrahan, Nolene Jarrett, Lee Cant, Deanne Bowring, Betty Cusack, Robert Stewart, Mark Hawker, Gwen Gorham and Beatrice Campbell. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Item 6 is the confirmation of the minutes of our last meeting. Moved Councillor Horton, seconded Councillor O'Connor. They be accepted. All those in favour? So be it. Thank you. Item number 7, declarations of interest. I have one to declare in item 18.234. Are there any other declarations of interest?
Mr Mayor, 18.237, I understand it's deferred.
Well, I'm asking for it to be deferred at the time. Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Yes.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd like to declare an interest, non-pecuniary interest in the Financial Committee report. I'm just trying to work out what number that is. 230, thank you. And I reserve the right to stay and vote for that matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr Mayor, I'll also declare a non-pecuniary interest in that same item and reserve the right to stay and vote.
Thank you. I will be abstaining from the debate and leaving the room when item 234 arises. Thank you. That being done, and no mayoral minute at the moment, we will. Would someone in council like to move for me to bring those matters forward that were spoke about in open forum? Moved Councillor Armstrong, seconded Councillor Rolls. Thank you. All those in favour? Aye. Thank you. So be it. So the first one in order is item 234. Councillors, and with that I will vacate the chair and the Deputy Mayor will take you from there.
He does it by paper, does he?
Page 35. It's
Okay, everyone, thank you. It's item 18.234. We had a speaker in public forum. There is a recommendation at page 44. Does someone wish to move the recommendation or any other recommendation?
Mr Acting Mayor, just a question. I'm a little bit confused as to why the minimum width is 6 metres from the road edge to the...
Excuse me, could you repeat the question, please?
I have an issue with the size of the concrete, which is minimum width of 6 metres from the road edge to the property, and why the thickness of the concrete has to be 150 millimetres. Mr Mayor, I've seen numerous industrial areas that don't have concrete driveways. Is there any way that this can be removed and your standard bitumen driveway be placed in its place?
Look, at the end of the day, the issue is really about longevity in terms of the road frontage and the type of environment it's going to be worked on. If it's going to be done in an asphalt, then it has to be designed accordingly to still withstand the type of traffic loads that are proposed.
Just a question.
Yes, Councillor Armstrong.
To the Acting Director. The other developments in the area, do they also share an industrial level crossing? And If they do, are they of concrete? Further question to the acting director. My understanding of the Roads Act is that such a crossing would constitute a special crossing, and that as a result of the provisions of the Roads Act, maintenance and the like of a special crossing falls back on the person, or is burdened upon the person who benefits from that special crossing. Is the issue of an industrial crossing, is that relating to higher maintenance needs flowing from those the usages, or is it from some other issue?
And through you, Deputy Mayor, the industrial development in itself requires industrial type services to be provided, and a crossing is just one of those issues. Now, it may well be that the current business activity as per se doesn't need it, but if the site is to start using that area with heavy vehicles, then it needs to be able to withstand that without having to address that matter at a later stage.
Would the maintenance of the crossing, by virtue of the provisions of the Roads Act, would that fall back to council, or would that fall back to the person gaining benefit from the special crossing?
I suggest to Council, whether we move into committee or someone brings a motion rather than continual questions. Do we have any motion from anyone in relation to this item?
Mr. Acting Mayor, I'd like to move a motion that we remove Part B of the recommendation.
That would make it more onerous for the development, not less.
Mr. Acting Mayor, I've been moving that amendment to make it less onerous. If that is the outcome, I will retract that amendment. That was not my intention.
No, I didn't think so. If no one else has a motion, I'll bring one. I'll move the recommendation. Is there a seconder? Councillor Rolls. I'll speak to the motion. I can understand where the applicant in this situation is coming from, and some allowance has been made in relation to the driveway changes, which seem to be fair despite some concern. And I fully understand the applicant's concerns in relation to the cost. The problem with these things is that you have to draw a line somewhere, and I know, but what happened before isn't what's happening now. But as a new council, I think we need to take a stand and stand by the plans that we have in place. And if this is the time we're going to start doing it and not making allowances, I think this is when we need to start doing it. Thank you. Have someone want to speak against the motion?
I'd like to speak against the motion. It is my belief that this area is an industrial area, and I've been looking for a plan that would show how that contribution is calculated. I know there is drainage issues where a fair bit of this contribution would go into, but as this has been an ongoing issue for many years, and this is a industrial area, there was a plan, or there is a plan, or there should be a plan that shows the layout of that industrial area. And to me, the point that Mr. Jarrett made about if you want to encourage development, I think is very valid. I think if we need to look at the overall picture, how it's calculated, and I think the calculation that Mr. Jarrett's come up with is more realistic. He's still making a contribution, but not so heavy.
Anyone for the motion?
Mr Mayor, I'd like to just speak for the motion. Harden Council, I think, I could be incorrect, but has had Section 94 contributions in place longer than the Young and Burrua Shires. So when it was first introduced in Harden, I think there was a reasonable amount of angst from developers about it, but they are introduced by the state government to allow councils to adequately fund infrastructure, and to roll over, for want of a better way of putting it, every time someone gets levied means that we end up with the same mess that councils have got into to date, which is insufficient funds or insufficient money to fund the needs going forward. So they're a system put in place by the state government that they expect us to use, and if we don't use them, we don't have the money to fund development. So whilst they're not pretty, and council, I think, would like to actually remove them, they are a need for us to have the resources. And almost all city councils who were not amalgamated because they had developer contributions from developments that enabled them to fund upgrades to intersections, to major roads, to key infrastructure to get people in and out of the industrial states, whatever it is. So we don't like them, but they are a reality, and I think if we chop and change because someone comes forward with an argument that is quite reasonable, and the argument is quite reasonable, we'll end up with a mess and no money. So on those grounds alone, I think I support it, and I think we need to vote for it.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Anyone else wish to speak against the motion?
Can I just comment on that? The contribution is being offered of 8,000 to 6,000. Actually said no contribution being made.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Walker. Anyone else wish to speak against the motion or for the motion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? I think we need a show of hands for this. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and against is 3. Motion is carried. Thank you, everyone. I'll vacate the chair.
Okay, so the next item that was spoke about on the agenda was item 18235. Councillors?
Yeah, Mr Mayor, thank you. In light of the facts that this is a very dangerous intersection, especially for laden trucks, the DA was approved subject to conditions some 3 years ago and still ongoing. And the latest hold-up has been well spoken. 2 very small parcels of land which are required in order to upgrade the intersection will not be sold by the owners of that land, and they're very small sections of land. Mr Mayor, I want to move a motion as follows: that Hilltops Council exercise its powers under Division 2 and 4 of the Roads Act 1993 to open a public road, and put in place appropriate procedures to acquire the 2 parcels of land in question.
Councillor Horton, the first thing I was going to do then was ask if the Director is sitting in to speak on the intersection upgrade, and I was looking for the recommendation that goes with that report,
No
And
recommendation.
there's no recommendation there, unfortunately. It says submitted for council's determination. So what would staff like council to determine? Could we have clarify for councillors, please?
Through the Mayor, the proposal is one in which,
Two options.
in granting part of the development consent for the mine, a condition of consent was imposed which required the upgrading of the intersection of Limestone Way and GRIFFIN Way. And to date, those works have not been undertaken. The main reason that the works have not been undertaken is that part of that the required acquisition of land has not been able to be undertaken. Council, both the applicant has approached the RMS to undertake an acquisition of that land, and Council has also approached RMS to undertake an acquisition of that land, and to date the RMS have declined to assist in that negotiation, and as such it has fallen back to Council to undertake that role, to undertake an acquisition of that public road. Council can undertake an acquisition as a compulsory acquisition, but as such it falls within Council to make that determination as to whether or not that is an option that Council wishes to undertake. Staff cannot make a delegation, cannot under delegation make that determination.
Thank you very much for that, Larissa. And that's to my point. So I presume the recommendation would read that Council has been asked to determine to compulsory acquire the portion of land that is needed. That would be the recommendation that is being put to Council. Can I have that on the board, please? Is it up there? So, no, sorry, Rita. Councillor Walker has moved to recommendation.
Second.
Councillor Horton has seconded that. So it's up for everyone to see. My screen's not on, I'm sorry. I don't know if it's why, but it's not. I think we need to have some more information with that resolution and just what's there at the moment. Thank you.
We've actually just putting it in, Mr Mayor. Chair, we've got the recommendation here. We're just inserting it into the minutes.
Working on the fact that necessary for the design of that intersection.
Councillor Horton had some good wording, didn't you, Councillor Horton?
Well, Councillor Horton did have some good wording. He jumped out of the trails straight away, and we're having enough trouble with the words we've suggested now. I do recommend that in future it's done before it gets to this stage.
Just through the chair, I actually have the recommendation. It's just we're just putting it into the. Would you? Yeah, I know. Absolutely agree. Would you like me to read it out?
It'll take them all night to type that out.
I can. Actually, I just wonder. I'll just circulate it to
Why is my screen not working? I am really going to have some words with some people.
Excuse me, Mr
No,
Mayor.
don't worry about it now. It's on. I'll do it this way.
Can I ask a question?
It's just
Is that in order?
Yeah.
Through the Mayor,
Councillor Rolls.
through the Mayor, I'd just like to ask a question.
Yep.
I presume that the company involved understands the advantage to them of this road widening, and is there an opportunity perhaps for council to approach them as well, so that there's just that extra lobbying to help them understand that it is to their advantage as well to make that land available? Is that a possibility?
It is my understanding through staff that every method has been tried to acquire that piece of land in other manners, and the answer has been no. There is only one way for that left to be done, and that sits with council, who has the power to acquire that land, that piece of land, which isn't a big piece of land as was presented earlier on, but I believe all attempts have been thwarted.
Including that from the council. Council has lobbied as well.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. If I could just add there, this land is owned by Barbara Station, and it's owned, of course, by the Chinese. The Chinese buy land, they don't sell it. And
We're digressing, Councillor. That's exactly right, Councillor Horton. They've been approached, the Speaker informed councillors they've been approached about it. There's been a change in the management, and they don't wish to sell it. Council has to acquire it compulsory.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I believe in the report it actually states that council will have to approach them to try and negotiate an outcome prior to undertaking the land acquisition. I also note, and probably would like to consider, if we get a second, or ask the mover of the motion to consider adopting that all costs associated with this land acquisition are actually borne with the Sibelco, the Sibelco.
That could be an amendment to a motion that I'm hearing already. So, through the General Manager, something to comment?
Mr Mayor, I'd ask the mover and seconder perhaps to adopt that as a part of their motion.
We'll do that, Councillor, when we get...
Through the Chair, certainly the motion that should have gone up, and I apologise for that, could easily incorporate a clause that actually says that council seek to negotiate with the relevant party in relation to the acquisition of land, and if that is unsuccessful, that they can seek to compulsorily acquire that land, and indeed that council ensure that all costs are passed on to Sibelco in relation to the legal costs that are involved in relation to that, and any land acquisition costs.
We've got a couple of... We'll just put them up and then...
Certainly.
On acquisition.
Would the mover and the seconder be happy to have that added to their motion?
Being finalised.
Thank you.
The land to be dedicated. It's public land. In accordance. With section 10 of the road. Council informs Sibelco that any costs borne by council for the acquisition of the land, including the compensation payable. Valuation costs. Valuation costs, comma, comma, valuation, comma, valuation.
Is that easy? Is that easy to say? No.
Valuation costs.
Councillor O'Connor.
While the road's been built, what happens to the current traffic? Like, what happens to the current truck movements? Because there's obviously a risk. So what do we do with that?
I'll flick that on. Councillor?
Through the Chair, I'll pass it on to the Director of Infrastructure because certainly the traffic has some multiple access opportunities there.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the work at that intersection would take place just like any other normal roadworks. It would be down to a controlled speed environment, probably 35 k's. It would be down to single light, single lane and traffic lights. So you'd be looking at it on that sort of basis, and it would take in the whole of the site where the improvements were proposed.
Sorry, I didn't make myself clear. What happens until that starts? Because the compulsory acquisition could take a while, right? So until that acquisition happens and the new roadworks start, we've still got to address where trucks go now.
Well, until such time as the work start on site, the current status quo remains in terms of the geometry at the site. It's been operating like that for quite some number of years, and really there isn't any other option at this point in time.
Thank you. Okay, have we got the motion on the board now that the mover and the seconder are happy with? If so, I've got a mover and a seconder. Would anyone like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, Mr Mayor.
The mover, I think we're talking the finish was from over here.
Yeah.
Councillor Walker, would you like to speak? Thank you, Councillor Walker. Do I have anyone speak against the motion?
Did we get a second? Did we get a second?
We had a seconder before. We did. We surely did.
Councillor Horton.
Thank you, staff. Okay.
Mr Mayor, question?
Question, Councillor Armstrong.
The last paragraph, it's my belief that should be a negotiated outcome rather than to simply say that Sibelco will be invoiced for it. That, to me, doesn't appear to be any obligation on the part of Sibelco to meet those costs at all. I think that there should be a negotiation and agreement prior to the commencement of this, such that Sibelco is on board with meeting those costs.
So, Councillor Armstrong, you'd like
invoicing doesn't necessarily mean to say that's going to get paid.
So you'd like an amendment to
Paid by Sibelco?
I would prefer if Council was to enter into negotiations with Sibelco to achieve an agreement.
Just slow down from then.
For all costs to be borne by Sibelco.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor. I think if you just take out the informed and put cancel...
We'll just have one amendment at a time, please, councillors.
I'm not talking about an amendment. I'm just talking about how an easy way to suggest to change this current amendment and just take out the informed in that paragraph above it and enter into agreement with Sibelco.
I think that the paragraph above it could be taken out. I think the paragraph above it could be taken out. Yeah.
Once again, are the mover and the seconder happy with the motion that's on the board in front of the council at the moment?
Yes.
Thank you very much. The mover declined to speak. Have we got anyone to speak against the motion that's on the board? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Again, so be it. Thank you, councillors, and I apologise for the delay in that process. It will not happen again. That takes us to the next item which was spoken on in open forum, which was the notice of motion, which is on page 223. Okay. So everybody up to where we are with the notice of motion, councillors? Okay, I'll hand over to Councillor Stadmiller, whose notice of motion.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the following notice of motion, that Hilltops Council provide certainty to the community of Harden Murrumburrah that the current site utilised by the Harden Senior Citizens Club and the current site utilised by the Harden Tennis Club and the local residents remain available to the community for which they are currently purposed. That the Senior Citizens Club can continue to conduct their business and hold their meetings and functions on the current site. That the Harden tennis courts continue to be maintained by Hilltops Council and provided as a tennis facility in its current form as 4 hard surface tennis courts for players and spectators of the sport, regardless of affiliation to a club. The Council not attempt to change the current uses of the sites, rezone the sites or alter their use in any way.
Thank you, Councillor Stadmiller. Do we have a seconder for that notice of motion? Seconded by Councillor Armstrong for discussion. Thank you. So, Councillor Stadmiller, you would the right of reply at the end of this. So, would anyone like to speak? The seconder like to speak for the notice of motion?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Certainly, whilst I am, I thank the General Manager for an email earlier today that clarified the ownership of the assets located on the Crown land. That's certainly set my mind at ease. The comments from the Secretary that the sorry, if you could just Treasurer, sorry, I did have that, Deirdre. Excuse me, Deirdre, I have that piece of paper back. Thank you very much. I think may actually negate item 2 there, in that the tennis club has very clearly stated that all maintenance undertaken was funded by the club to date. So, and that all upgrades and maintenance for any future courts will be continue to be funded by the Harden Tennis Club. I'm just, I think that perhaps point 2 there may well be redundant. If I'll take advice from the move of the motion later on in that regard. I certainly am concerned that the Senior Citizens Club may potentially be displaced, and I think that I can't find any record of consultation with the Senior Citizens Club, given that Council has been a significant benefactor for the Senior Citizens Club in recent times, including considerable works undertaken there to refurbish it after some storm damage. So that's the basis of my seconding this motion.
Thank you, Councillor
Mr
Armstrong.
Mayor, can I move that we move into committee, because I think there's going to be questions.
Councillor Flannery's moved that we move into committee. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Tuckerman, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. We will move into committee to discuss the notice of motion that's been moved and seconded. Councillor O'Connor.
Mr Mayor, there's never been any question of the senior citizens moving. That's never been part of the tennis club talk, either with the grant or without the grant. There's never been any question at all of the senior citizens moving, so I'm not sure where that comes from, Matt.
Councillor Stadmill, would you like to?
Happy to reply. The intent of the motion is to provide surety around the senior citizens remaining where they are, being that if the tennis club moves and that site is vacated, there are 2 other sites currently in use, the petrol station and the vacant block on the corner of East and Albury Street, which would leave the Senior Citizens Club very much alone on the rest of that site and may see it come under pressure.
Councillor Tuckerman.
Mr Mayor, just a question. Does the senior citizens have a lease with council?
Staff member like to deal with that?
I'd need to take that on notice.
Okay. Councillor Flannery, I believe.
Mr Mayor, look, I think there's, well, from what I'm informed by people in Harden, there is some angst about the whole process or lack of process that's occurred, and I was half part of it on the Sports Committee a year or so ago. I think, whilst I understand the intention of Councillor Stadmiller's motion, I think it's a bit dangerous to guarantee certainty of location for any organisation in any one spot, because opportunities arise, and if we're locked into this location for either of these organisations for any reason, and a better opportunity comes up, it may well be that Pepe's Ducks may offer $10 million to the senior citizens to build a whatever there, and you're locked into a council motion. I mean, I think there's a degree of politicisation of this issue in this motion, but I also, whilst I support, I don't understand, I'm not aware of what's gone on in the tennis club, and I understand that there's not total agreement with what is happening with the proposed move. It's not finalised yet. I don't believe there is any move to relocate the senior citizens, but should there be, I would think it would be to a location that would have to be suitable to them after consultation has occurred, and you would assume that it would be for the betterment of their organisational club. So I think that Council would be advised to not move this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Any other questions or comments around Councillor Stadmiller?
Question for Councillor Flannery, if you'd like to answer it. Does he have a time frame that we could lock in which would provide surety in the interim of a number of years?
Look, I don't have a time frame of surety for anything, but I don't know how long they've been. They've been there all my life. I'm not too sure that I reckon I'll be in a box before they move.
Thank you. Look, my comment was along with the seconder in regard to the .2, which has obviously just been negated by the Speaker, who said that they took care of that maintenance and that, and so that sort of takes care of that. .3, that Council not attempt to change the current uses of the site. I can assure you, under the Crown Lands and the Crown Land review that's taking place, there will be no change of use for that site for some considerable time. I can't give you a time frame on that neither, Councillor Stadmiller, but I can assure you any changes to how that site might be used will be lengthy and with a lot of procedure involved, so I can't see that happening anytime soon. But I understand the sentiment and of the seniors Citizens Club, of course, too, and no one wants to see anyone unsettled and moved unnecessarily, but I think maybe this motion could be a bit over what is necessary to make sure that those people are looked after, because it's never the intent of Council to take services away or make life harder for any organisation. But I do understand your concern for the people that you're representing. Councillor Manchester.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Through you. Look, I think this motion is actually jumping the gun. Look, one, I tend to agree with Councillor Flannery that I think I'll definitely be probably dead before they move, but
let's be positive.
I'm not sure about that. But look, if the tennis clubs does decide to build courts up wherever, say up at the country club, for instance, and hook us into keeping them and maintaining the current courts where they are, you've got two sets of courts maintained in a township that it's hard to justify 4 courts at the best of times. So, look, and what happens with the Senior Citizens Club after that? You know, who knows? But hopefully that consideration is given to the senior cits, because it's been an important part of the community for a long, long time, and it is highly used. So, I think one, we're jumping the gun a bit because we do not know whether the tennis club is going to move. There is talks of it, but the talks have been going on now for 3 or 4 years that I know of. It might even be longer. So I think it's just this recommendation is jumping the gun.
Thank you, Councillor Manchester. I agree. Look, preempting is the word, and in regard to the maintaining of 2 sets of court, I can assure you from this councillor's point of view, if the tennis club decided to go with the country club development, that Council wouldn't be maintaining those courts. Councillor Flannery.
Mr Mayor, just following up from what you said, and I do think it's a very important point, and that should the tennis club decide or agree to relocation of the courts to the country club or anywhere else, that land cannot be just used for anything, or it can't be sold. It is Crown land. It has to then go through a process of going back to the government for its Crown land community. So the first thing that actually has to go is through an Aboriginal land title claim before it can be rezoned for anything. And it would be the same for the Senior Citizens Club. So anyone trying to relocate needs to be very aware of the consequences of leaving land there in Harden that might become unsightly. So I imagine those involved in the tennis club, some will be pro, some will be anti, but that ultimately will be the decision of a tennis club. But the ultimate use of the land will be a lengthy process that could take years, and it would be the same with the senior citizens. So and it's the reason I don't think that anyone would try and relocate the senior citizens. It's just all too hard, unless there was a very good reason, and it would be part of an overall plan that council and the community are trying to achieve.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. I think the conversation has been had, councillors. I think enough. If someone like to move us back into council. Councillor O'Connor, seconded Councillor Horton. Thank you. All those in favour? You'll have your right of reply, Councillor Stadmiller. We're back in council now, and I was up to before we went into the committee. If anyone wants to speak against it, I think that's been covered in committee. If you'd like to take your opportunity to have your right of reply now.
Okay, firstly, look, I'll reject Councillor Flannery's assertion that this is being politicised in any way. I've had a large number of members of the community come to me, not all members of the tennis club, in regard to this issue. It's clear that both council and the tennis players and the tennis club in Harden contribute to the upkeep of the tennis courts, which are owned by all residents and are under the Crown. And although those present tonight represent the Harden Tennis Club, they do not represent all tennis players in the Harden area, nor do they represent the opinions of all of the club's members. A vote taken by the tennis club has resulted in a decision to construct new courts elsewhere, and in particular at the Harden Country Club. The courts proposed are not traditional tennis courts. They are multi-purpose courts which will change the access to tennis and may devalue a great Australian pastime, in my opinion. The 12 courts to be constructed at Young and the 4 courts to be constructed at BURROWA are not multi-purpose courts which encompass netball, basketball or futsal. Unlike Harden's proposal, why then will this be good enough for Harden residents? If multi-purpose courts are constructed, several other sports will also be accessing the courts, which will provide decreased access for tennis players and an increase in wear and tear on the surfaces. Team sports consisting of far more players, including sports where the surface will have a ball kicked off it or a large ball used, have been slated. This will shorten the lifespan of the current courts. If constructed at the country club, who will be paying for the maintenance? Council should be maintaining the current courts on the Crown land currently under their care. Unfortunately, in my opinion, the construction of multi-purpose sport courts will not be in the best interests of the tennis club or current players of the sport in the area. I believe that Council has, over the lifetime of the current courts, contributed to the club by assisting with grant funding and by providing a peppercorn lease. This has saved the club thousands of dollars. I fear that plans to construct the courts at the country club will result in further plans to demolish the current tennis courts and possibly the senior citizens building from their current sites. This may have the potential to free up land that was gazetted as far back as 1880 for the purposes of public recreation and for it to be used for other options not originally intended. The land originally gazetted for public recreation included the land as far up as Scott Street in the south and Orby Street in the north. Homes have been constructed on this land, which has reduced the size of the area provided for public recreation. Land which also has been lost includes land which now houses properties along both Station, Scott and East Street, and more recently land which was formerly utilised by Trinity Catholic School in the late 1990s, which was developed by the Kruger Trust in Swift Street. Proposals for the land which are circling in the community include a truck stop or housing. The latter was detailed to me by the former interim general manager at the Harden offices earlier this year. 4 multi-purpose courts have already been viewed on plans provided to members of the public by the country club. Total cost of construction of the courts, which was detailed by the former president of the tennis club, is in the vicinity of over $800,000, depending on what style of courts are constructed. The tennis club has stated that they have incurred architectural costs currently of $26,950. Does it therefore appear that they are engaged in the country club proposal, or was the money spent on the design of new courts on the current site? The proposal formally presented to councillors included, and I quote, removal of old courts and managed site until further use / Kruger. What has been and what is currently Kruger's involvement in the proposal and the said recreation land, if any? The tennis courts located on the corner of East and Albury Streets are an icon of Harden Murrumburrah and need to be preserved. If the Harden Tennis Club relocates from the site, in my opinion, they absolve any interest in the current courts, the lease or the infrastructure. This should not preclude any other group from utilising the courts and the infrastructure and using them for their intended purpose. Their intended purpose is to play tennis. Their intended purpose of the senior citizens is to house our more elderly residents in a safe location. Council should work with other groups who explicitly want to keep the courts for their current intended purpose. Public recreation land was gazetted for that purpose and should remain to be used for that purpose. When Crown land sale inquiries are made, inquiries undergo an intensive process. When sales are assessed, one factor is that the sale does not lead to a loss of public enjoyment. What we currently have are courts which are enjoyed by the public and administered by Council. This is in the spirit of how the courts were originally designed and designated over 80 years ago and gazetted since around 1880. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stadmiller. And I do believe a number of your concerns were addressed in the committee as a whole and when we spoke of those, but I appreciate your sentiment. That all being done and said, the mover and seconder, I'll put the notice of a motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion is lost. Thank you, councillors. That takes care of the business from open forum, I believe. So we get back onto schedule with council, which takes me up to the Mayor's diary. The council to be noted, which is there. Thank you. I'll just wait a moment. Okay, councillor, so the Mayor's report there, happy to take any questions or any comments in regard to that. We have the councillors' reports are next, and Councillor Horton has provided a written one, so thank you, Councillor Walker. Councillor Horton, sorry. So I'll start with Councillor Tuckerman. Would you like to speak to you?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just meetings as minuted. When would you like to do the community recognition?
You can do them now as you come around.
I'd just like to propose that we acknowledge two Boorowa people, David Marsh and Charlie Arnott, who were winners of National Land Care Awards. David's award celebrates a land care volunteer who has demonstrated leadership and commitment to improving management practices through practical, on-ground and community awareness activities. He was pivotal in the early establishment of land care, particularly in the Boorowa area, so certainly well recognised and has done an absolutely amazing job. Charlie Arnott, a biodynamic farmer, he was also recognised and received the Bob Hawke Award, which enables Charlie to continue championing his biodynamic farming techniques, and I'd also like to acknowledge his efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tuckerman, and I presume you've got that documented that you can give to staff. Thank you. If councillors, if we bring those things to council, if you can have them written down for staff, is appreciated. Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I had a few weekends in Jugiong, and as usual, they always impress. They put on Gray's Jugiong Food and Wine Market and the Riverside Markets, which were very well patronised and fell on beautiful days. That helped. As well as that, the Harden Kite Festival was extraordinary. I know your angst on the day because we just had, queues of people coming out of nowhere. But it was an extraordinary day for Harden and for Hilltops. And to that effect, I'd like to have a Community Recognition Award for them, which I've already forwarded to Deirdre, for the energy, passion and enormous dedication of the Kite Festival team, committee. putting on an extraordinary festival that brought, thousands of people to Harden. As well as that, there were a couple of other things. The 150-year anniversary of Wombat School on Sunday, the Raise the Roof concert to celebrate 150 years of St Mary's Church, Murrumburrah, and also to raise funds for farmers, also on Sunday afternoon, were excellent. They were really lovely community events. And then on Monday night with Rotary, we had the Silver Lining Riders, 12 riders who were fundraising for ovarian cancer, and that was, look, the Rotary Club actually was able to give them $800, and then they got another $700 in kind from the Lighthorse Hotel. It was quite extraordinary. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Manchester.
Yes, Mayor, the minute meetings...
Can you tap your microphone, please, Councillor?
Through the Mayor, I have another.
Yeah, we'll come round. We'll get to you. We'll get to you. Yep.
Sorry, Mr Mayor. The minuted meetings, 2 LEP committee meetings, 2 financial sponsorship meetings, budget meeting, a meeting with the Chinese Consul General both here and at Currawong, the Bob Spackman scoreboard official opening, and the 150-year Wombat School reunion. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Manchester. Councillor Walker.
Meetings is minuted.
Thank you. Councillor Flannery.
Same.
As I said, the mayoral diary's there, and hectic time. So I'll pass on to Councillor Horton.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. My activity report's documented there and self-explanatory, and the committees like GALONG, Councillor Flannery and Jugyong, they send in their committee meeting reports. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. Councillor Armstrong.
Mayor, the proposed RFS headquarters workshop, Hilltops Business Community Workshop, the Harden Kite Festival and Racecourse Facility Funding Announcement at Joint Use Library Steering Committee meeting at Yarn, the Joint Use Library Council's Workshop, Community Funding meeting, LEP Urban and Rural Land Review constituent meetings, and I'd like to support the recommendation of Councillor O'Connor for the Harden Kite Festival for the planning, organising, coordinating execution of the 2018 Harden Kite Festival. Attendance levels were unprecedented and could only be described as amazing. Congratulations to them.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Stadmiller.
Mr Mayor, I had a number of constituent meetings. I'll keep it brief. There seems to be some concern at Galong as to the slow rollout of the VPA spending, whether staff can chase that up. Fences and shading still haven't been completed. Also met with the resident of Winton Lane in Harden. It may not be on our plans for the next 12 months, but there are issues there with trees and drainage which are affecting properties. I attended the Kite Festival, an LEP meeting, and I attended the Shooters, Fishers and Farmers Conference, not wholly and solely in my capacity as a councillor or directed by Hilltops Council, but was there in both capacities along with councillors from Orange. So worthy of a mention. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stadmiller. Councillor Rolls.
Through the Mayor, I attended many of the workshops and meetings that other councillors have attended as well, and I travelled the breadth of almost of Hilltops, from BOOROWA to Bribbury, from the Woolfest to Bribbury Show, and at all places I'd like to applaud the members of our Hilltops for the sense of community that is shown right throughout the region. I've been on a learning curve in going to the local government conference in Albury this week, and I feel that in my first year as a councillor I am learning how local government works, and I am amazed at what goes on in this community. I'd also like to give a community award to Moppity Vineyards, who have the best Cabernet in New South Wales. So congratulations at the awards just given the other day. They picked up that award. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rolls. And Councillor Rolls has assured me that she can give us a small report on the Local Government New South Wales Conference at our next meeting, and advised me not to worry about taking notes, so I appreciate that, Councillor Rolls.
Just remember, through the Mayor, that you owe me.
I won't go there. Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Various workshops, and just one other thing I'd like to mention. I went to the reception for the Governor of New South Wales out at Clifton, and I just wanted to commend Harry Cleverton, who performed on the evening, and it was an accomplished and very enjoyable performance. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace, and I had correspondence with the Governor after his visit, and a little job he wanted me to take care of, and I also passed on our appreciation for the way he extended his time to everyone. He spoke to everyone. He did not brush aside anyone or speak. He was scheduled to be gone at 8 o'clock. I was the last person to leave, and it was about 9:10. His driver and guards was standing out in the car park still waiting. So he was very generous with his time and the community, and it was a great night.
Mr Mayor, can I move a formal vote of thanks to those, the committees that have been, I guess, so active, but particularly the Kite Festival, BOOROWA Wool Fest. They did, I wasn't at either because I was absent, working one week and absent for the other, but I think they deserve a special motion of a vote of thanks from Council.
I have no problem with that being an official thank you from Council. I'm sure I'd have a seconder for that motion.
Awesome.
Put for Councillor O'Connor. All those in favour? Staff, and we'll make sure that those committees are contacted with an official letter of gratitude from Council for the work and the volunteers that they do. It's a fantastic effort. Okay, councillors, we'll move on to item 18.224, and I'll hand over to the General Managers for the General Manager's report.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So, through the Chair...
That should stay on.
Yeah, thank you. Through the Chair, just in relation to a number of reports in front of you, the New South Wales state election is coming up, and certainly we've been very fortunate since amalgamation in relation to state levels of state funding. However, it does present a really good opportunity for the Council to again refine its priorities and put up a 10-point plan, if you will, to the local member in relation to the New South Wales state election, and certainly I'm asking that I work with you in order to do that.
Move the recommendation, Mr Chairman.
Moved Councillor Manchester, seconded Councillor O'Connor. Would you like to speak?
Can I have a question?
Question, Councillor Walker.
Can that priority list be sent to other proposed people who might be standing for state parliament, or is it restricted to the local member?
Oh, certainly, Councillor. That's a good point. We're making an assumption, aren't we? Certainly, we can forward that to all relevant members and shadow members, ministers.
And candidates, I'd say is the word we're
and
looking
candidates,
for.
thank you,
Yep.
Mr Mayor.
Could that be included? That's...
Certainly, yes, certainly.
If the mover and the seconder is happy for that to be included, thank you. So that... And any further candidates? Done? Okay, happy? The mover and seconder is happy? There's no further questions or comments in regard to that. I'll put that. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Thank you. Item 18.225, General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So, through the Chair, as part of the General Manager's... technology. As part of the General Manager's contract, the first order of business with councils is that they pass on the delegations to the General Manager. We should, out of good governance, have a resolution that backs that up. So accordingly, you have the delegations that you had negotiated at that time presented to you in a formal sense for endorsement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question for the Mayor.
We have a question. I'll take the question first. Councillor Stadmiller.
Are there any further delegations outside of the Act that Hilltops Council is offering the new General Manager?
I'll deflect to the General Manager. Not that I know of, Councillor Stadmiller.
Through the Chair, are you asking, are the General Manager's delegations limited to the Local Government Act?
Yeah, I do understand that, but are we offering any other delegations above and beyond that are within the framework?
Certainly, the additional delegations would be administrative policies, the ability to sign off on those.
Thank you for that. We've got a mover and a seconder before we start. We've got a mover over here was Councillor Walker. A seconder was Councillor Horton. I'll take questions. Councillor Tuckerman or...
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to ask a question. On looking at the delegations, I noted under the Local Government Act 004, there was a delegation that suggested that all mayoral functions be given to the General Manager. I asked the Director of Community and Corporate just in regards to that. I didn't think that that was appropriate or legal. It was explained to me that the delegations are from a database that comes from local government legal. So inquiries were made with the senior lawyer, Rachel Webb, in regards to that delegation, and I was informed that that delegation does not pertain to the General Manager delegations and should be removed. So I asked for that to be removed.
Thank you, Councillor Tuckerman, and very appropriate that it be removed, and I'm pleased it was picked up.
Just through the Chair, just as just to clarify that that we remove it from the second paragraph.
No, it's the actual delegation.
Sorry,
the actual delegation.
LG Act.
LG Act 004. It says mayoral function.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
All councillors up to where we're talking about that and know where we're referring to?
Certainly.
So I'm happy to endorse the motion with those changes.
So is the mover and seconder of that happy for that to be removed from the list of delegations that are there? Thank you. Councillor Horton, he's happy. So all councillors understand what's being removed from there? Happy? There's no other questions? No debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Thank you, councillors. Item 18.226, membership of the community working groups for Burrangong Creek and Blackguard Gully projects. Executive Director, Corporate and Community, would you like to speak to the report?
A process was undertaken to establish a working party for the Burrangong Creek and Blackguard Gully projects. We received 3 expressions of interest for the Blackguard Gully and only 1 for the Burrangong Creek, and we received 1 after the close-off period for the Burrangong Creek. And so that the recommendation is that we take the 3 nominations that we received for the Blackguard Gully, but a community working party of 1 person sort of defeats the purpose of it. And so we're suggesting we don't establish a working group, but they, the people that showed an interest get engaged by council staff for input.
Thank you for that. It's pretty straightforward, councillors, I would think. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that recommendation? Move Councillor Rolls. Second.
Point of clarification.
Seconded with Councillor Horton. There's a point of clarification. Councillor Walker.
Yeah, point number 1, the name of Mrs. Stem. Is it Marilyn or Margaret?
I think it's Marilyn.
I believe it's Marilyn. Thank you, Councillor Walker. So with that correction on the name, we have a mover and seconder. All those in favour? Again, so be it. Thank you, councillors. Item 18.227, live streaming of council meetings policy. It's there. The recommendation is there. Move Councillor Horton. Seconded Councillor Manchester. Thank you.
Can I just ask a question?
Question,
through you,
Councillor
Mr. Mayor?
Tuckerman.
I understand the reason why this has to occur, but I'm just wondering what the checks and balances are, and does a report come back to council in regards to anything?
Through the Chair, I believe the question you're asking me is, does any information come back to council to indicate that where a record has been modified? Is that correct?
Yes.
Certainly this is the first time we would modify, and so at this stage no, but yes, could certainly do that.
I just mentioned on that point, at local government conference, there was a motion put to all councils in regard to privacy of council meetings and protection, the same the state and federal counterparts get, and that motion was lost because the sentiment was that if you have something to say outside the building, you should say it out there, and you should be able to say it inside the building. But to give protection to people to say things that are unfounded and not factual inside isn't fair to the person you're referring to. So that motion was lost, and lost quite definitely, that there's no protection in the chamber. So that's a bit relevant to this editing policy that we're talking about now.
Question?
Privilege I was talking about, sorry. Councillor Armstrong?
Through you, Mr Mayor, to the General Manager. Just following on from Councillor Tuckerman's question, I make one very simple. What happens to the naughty bits? And are they treated consistent with the provisions of the Local Government Act and the State Records Act?
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. So through the Mayor, yes, they are indeed a public record, and so should be treated in accordance with the Public Records Act. The intent of the live streaming is to capture council live. However, as a public record, we file that as any other public record in the council's corporate management system. That means the original version and the edited version. The edited version actually becomes a public record, another public record on top of the minutes of council, and is actually hosted on its website after the it's actually streamlined and actually stays there as the edited record, should it be required to do so, on its website.
And the bits that are cut out, the naughty bits, are they stored as separate records?
Through the Chair, yes, the entire record would be stored.
So the answer would be no then? They're not stored separately?
So, yes, through the Chair, I'll just defer to the Executive Director of Corporate and Community to answer that.
Under the changes we're proposing, under 5.2, in the event of an edited copy being placed on Council's website, Council will indicate that it is an edited recording. Council will also retain a copy of the unedited meeting webcast.
So the answer is no, because we won't be keeping the footage of the bits that are cut out as separate objects. We'll actually be keeping the whole meeting. Correct?
Yeah, through the Chair, yes,
Thank
Councillor
you.
Armstrong, you're quite correct. We would keep an original version in its entirety. No, we wouldn't actually segregate those edits. It would be somewhat hard to maintain control over the extra little bits. It's much easier to keep an original record.
They've been cut out. Surely they can be kept as separate records. They have to be identified to be cut out.
Just through the Chair, it's just certainly Council's intention is to keep an original copy of the record and an edited copy of the record, but not a separate edited copy of the edits.
A question, through you, Mr Mayor. If Council were to receive an application of the Government Information and Public Access Act for the bits that were edited out, how would Council supply those?
Through the Chair, I'll just defer to the Executive Director of Corporate and Community.
Council would, under the GIPA provisions, they'd make an assessment under those provisions, public interest, and then an assessment would be made to whether or not that could be released. But the mere fact that you have, sought to edit things, I think would show that you did not believe that that was that it did not meet criteria for actually being on council's website.
I'm sorry, that hasn't answered the question.
Yeah. Look, through the chair, I think Councillor Armstrong, I'll take that on notice. I do understand what you're trying to say, that if you had, can council supply the edited amount as part of a GIPA request? Certainly our assumption in the writing of our policy is that that we have an original record that we would supply in its entirety in relation to a GIPA request, but I do take that on notice. There may be a degree of practicality in what you're suggesting.
Councillor Flannery, the question.
Surely council will make a decision as to whether they were willing to supply the unedited version, and which may simply be added for swearing or whatever it may be. It may be edited for inadvertent disclosure of confidential information, such as I was able to indulge council with.
Precedent's been set.
But to the heart of the matter, it would be a decision for council as to whether the edited content was confidential or simply of inadmissible work, such as swearing or whatever. And if it was swearing and someone really wanted to listen to coarse language or whatever it is, I'm sure council may choose to release it. But if it's confidential information, there would be a decision made at that discretion. But I don't believe any private organisation would necessarily provide edited extracts. It's simply an edited versus unedited version.
Thank you, Councillor Flynn. I think the intent of the matter is for the protection of council and councillors. I think that's the intent that's here in front of us. I have the authority to stop the streaming at any time, which I've done, if I think that things need to be resolved in an orderly manner. So we have the authority and the power to stop that on the spot, so that's an edit straight away. So I think the intent of this was to be aimed at the protection of council and councillors, but I'll leave it with council. Councillor Stadmiller.
Just quickly, Mr Mayor, on the back of what you've said there, following any meeting, the Chair and the General Manager have the discretion and authority to direct the exclusion of all or part of any meeting recording. To exclude all of it, there'd have to be some pretty silly shenanigans go on for a couple of hours. I don't know whether that's relevant, but I am slightly worried about the position it would put the Chair and the General Manager in if they were worried about something they had said and then use their authority to remove it. I'm just uneasy on the position that puts you two in.
Take that on board, Councillor Stadmiller, and I hate to have to say to edit 2.5 hours of a council meeting would mean something was wrong, so I agree with you there. So, the report's there, the recommendation's there. We've got a mover and a seconder. Unless we've had questions about it, if someone wants to speak to it, the mover or the seconder would like to speak to it. If not, if someone would like to speak against it. If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Thank you, councillors. Item 18, 228. Yep. Murrumburrah Precinct Master Plan. Councils, there's a report there in front of you, and the recommendation is there. Pretty straightforward, I would think. I'm not sure. Have we a mover and a seconder? Moved Councillor O'Connor, seconded Councillor Horton. Thank you. If you have any questions or discussion on that matter, if not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Again, so be it. Thank you, councillors. Better. Item 18, 229. The Annual Government Information Public Access, the GIPA return. The report's there, councillors, and it's recommendations moved by Councillor Horton, seconded by Councillor Manchester. All those in favour? Again, so be it. Thank you. Item 18, 230, distribution of Council's financial assistance donation funds. Councillors, the report's there, all documentation's there.
Move it, Mr Mayor.
Moved Councillor Manchester, thank you. Seconded Councillor O'Connor. All those in favour? Again, so be it, thank you. Item 18, 231, cash and investments as of September 18. Moved Councillor Horton. Seconded.
Question?
Do I have a seconder? Sorry? I did. Councillor Manchester was the seconder, and I have a question from Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. CFO's not here tonight, but I'm just a bit concerned. Can someone tell me how many shares we have in Southern Phone Company, please?
2.
Thank you. And would there be a reason that they're not shown on our investments, given that they return a fairly tidy sort of a dividend on an annual basis?
Through the Chair, we can take that on notice. Sorry. Through the Chair, we can take that on notice and provide you with that information.
Thank you.
I've got just a question to the General Manager. The Chief Financial Officer wasn't listed as an apology tonight. So our Chief Financial Officer hasn't been at the last couple of council meetings. I'm finding it that particularly strange. Is there a reason why our CFO doesn't attend our council meeting? Take it on notice if you like.
Certainly, look, I'll take that on notice, but through the Chair, the normal practice is that the directors represent their directorates, and accordingly, the Executive Director of Corporate and Community does actually supervise the Chief Financial Officer, and accordingly would normally answer the questions in relation to that. However, we certainly can extend an invitation to the CFO to be present at any or all meetings.
I haven't got a problem with that. If the Director of Corporate and Community is capable and able to answer all the financial questions, that's fine. But if we've got financial questions, we're talking to our financial figures, and the questions asked, taken on notice, isn't really appropriate to the way we should run our organisation, I believe.
Mr Mayor,
Councillor Armstrong.
If I can just clarify my earlier statement, the only reason why I was inquiring as to whether the CFO was available was because the certification is actually by the CFO rather than the Executive Director. But if the General Manager prefers that those questions be directed to the Executive Director, then I shall do so.
Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Okay, given that in front of us, councillors, and the recommendation is there. So I had a mover and a seconder. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Thank you. Item 18232, my favourite. Hilltops Local Heritage Fund. Reports there, councillors, in front of you. And recommendations there in front of you, councillors.
Move recommendations.
Moved Councillor Manchester. Seconded Councillor Walker. Thank you. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Thank you. Item 18233, Development Application Statistics for September. The documentation's there, councillors, and the recommendations there. Do I have a mover and a seconder?
Move them, Mr Mayor.
Move Councillor Manchester. You're going well tonight, and Councillor Horton was the seconder. Thank you for that. Any questions? If not, I'll put everyone all in favour? Again, so be it. Thank you. Item 18234 has been dealt with, whichever would have happened there, that's there. So it takes me to item 18235, which has been dealt with. Takes me to item 18236. There's a report, there's a recommendation there somewhere. Would the Director like to speak to it, or would Council like me to look for a mover and a seconder? Councillor Horton's like to move that. Councillor Rolls will second that. So I've got a mover and a seconder. If there's any questions or debate about that? If there's not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Thank you, councillors. Item 18237, I would ask someone to second for me the fact that we defer this item till a further meeting.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor, do I have to leave the room?
Not if we're going to defer it. No, it's been moved and seconded, and all those in favour, just don't vote. Mr Councillor Flannery.
Can I speak?
Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Wallace.
I was supposed to speak. I don't know if I'm speaking against the motion, but I don't understand the reasoning behind it. It's on the paper. I've got all the information there as far as I'm aware. If there's further information that isn't there, I don't know why it's not there. So I just can't get some clarification.
My belief, and I could hand to the gentleman, but I was privy to a conversation earlier, that there is some more information to be put on the table for councillors that has only just come to council, and that the current staff member who's been dealing with all the historical stuff, which is in front of us, isn't here. But my understanding is there is new information to be put to councillors to have a better understanding of the whole process. So But thanks for the question. Yep.
Mr Mayor, to add to that too, there's 114 pages in that document. If you're an engineer, it'd be pretty easy to work out. But I think we need to workshop that for the councillors to get a better understanding of it before we can make an informed decision.
Thanks, Councillor Horton, and I'm sure that's the action and the course we will take. So we had a mover and a second to defer that item. All those in favour? Again, so be it. Thank you, councillors. I moved it, and Councillor Armstrong seconded it. Item 18, 238, Burrangong Creek, inclusive playground and amenities. And there's a recommendation there without councillors. Is that moved, Councillor Rolls? Sorry, I'll let my head down. Councillor Rolls moves, seconded Councillor Horton. Questions or discussion on that item? If not...
you have a couple of points there.
Councillor
Mr
Wallace.
Mayor, the first is the arts and cultural expenditure, which I asked a question about several meetings ago, which is the toilet. And I think moving the toilet upgrade to Tresillian Park is not within the arts and cultural precinct, so that's a furphy. So to say that it's an arts and cultural thing, it was stretched in the first place, and now it's just gone too far completely. I don't know how that affects our funding, because if it's not an arts and cultural thing, even if it's an arts and cultural toilet, but it's nowhere near the arts and cultural precinct.
We're going to put a painting on it.
Thanks, Councillor Rolls. But it's not in the precinct. We did a plan. We've got a master plan. It's not in the precinct. So, and the other point is, I take the point about the organisation that's going to be contracted to do the work. And I haven't got the exact point in the report, but the reason for not tendering it, it's fallacious. The report says something to the effect of because they're the best and there aren't any other tenderers, then we should use them. Now that's just not right. We don't know that. We haven't done the research. I'm not suggesting that there is anyone better, but I think further research needs to be done, and simply to say that there's no one else without any backups, not a good course of action by us, and it doesn't look good.
So thank you, Councillor Wallace. I'll take that as... We haven't had a mover, a seconder for a start. Do I have? I'm sorry, Councillor Rolls did, and Councillor Horton, I'm sorry, I've got them ticked off. So I'll take that as speaking against. Thank you, Councillor Wallace, against the recommendation. Would the mover like to speak to that and then reserve the right for a reply later? Yep.
Thank you. Through the Mayor. I think the step has been taken because this is a fairly specialised area of play equipment, and also the bodies involved have a lot of experience in it. I suppose I take your point. How do we know that? But I'm prepared to take it on trust that both these organisations are experts in their field and have also all the contacts which we don't necessarily have, so that they know the play equipment that is most appropriate and have the background to make sure that it is the latest in educational and occupational growth for the playground, and in that sense I'm more than prepared to allow this tender to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rolls. Any other speakers against the recommendation?
Mr Mayor,
Councillor Armstrong.
I don't really want to... I want to support the inclusive playground. My concern is that the location is perhaps not the best location for it, in my opinion. We have a very significant expectation on the part of the community in regards to the swimming pool, and quite recently we had a number of community meetings with swimming pool users, and one of the issues that arose was the great value that the community places upon the grassed area of the pool, and once a 25-metre heated swimming pool goes in place, a large part of that grassed area is taken up. Tresillian Park looks quite appealing as a large grassed area that may constitute an extension of the swimming pool. I'm just concerned that perhaps if the inclusive playground were to find its new home at Tresillian Park, that may limit the opportunities for the swimming pool to be extended into that area. I can see issues with parking. There are already concerns from the residents that I'm certain that the Mayor and Councillor Walker are only too well aware of in regards to parking in Marina Street. I just have concerns about that location.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. I take that as talking against the recommendation.
Yes, thank you.
Any speaker for the recommendation?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The idea of this park is for people or children with a permanent disability of some sort. And the parents want the children to be included or feel included in any of those swings that are in the park. So they don't want to be segregated. Now, there are other places I know we could talk about Apex Park and a couple of others.
Councillors.
But this particular area is close to the swimming pool. These children might like to go for a swim one day too with their parents. They're nice and close. Any children can use this park and the swings, and so the children with a disability will feel part of the community and not segregated. And I think it's a good spot to have it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. So, anyone else would like to speak for the recommendation?
I'd like to speak against. Was Councillor Horton speaking for then? Or?
Are you speaking for?
For.
Sorry, yep. So we've had two. Councillor Stadmiller would like to speak against.
Very briefly, I just share Councillor Wallace's sentiments about going out to tender on this. I think we should do that and give everyone the opportunity to tender.
Thank you, Councillor Stadmiller. So I've had some speakers for and speakers against, and I've had no indication of any amendments being put. So I'll put the recommendation.
Before you do that, can I just ask a question of the General Manager through you? Is her opinion on regard to the tendering issue?
Sorry. Thank you, Councillor Tuckerman. So through the Chair, certainly what we're suggesting is this is the recommendation as it's put towards you is actually a streamlined process by what we believe to be an expert provider in relation to the supply of professional services, including relationships around the supply of equipment. However, I might ask the Executive Director of Corporate and Community just to give a little bit of background on just why Tresillian Park is seen as the best option.
There is a location analysis that has been undertaken by staff for that. I think it offers, while none of the parks meet all of the what you would want, Tresillian Park had the ease of access was good to very good, and I think when it's a playground which is an all abilities playground, that's one of the main things that you want, is to have really good access. But it also had very good passive surveillance and very good opportunities for development there. So that's why it came out on top. All of the sites had poor access to amenities, and that's why there is a proposal to actually build amenities there.
And through the Chair, just to extend on that, is there is an existing playground on the site, and this did actually represent an opportunity to upgrade that playground. So therefore, there were some cost efficiencies built into this option for Council.
Thank you. Would the Acting Director of Infrastructure, who's responsible for the report, like to speak to something?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, in terms of the procurement process, there was an actual workshop done by by the trust that's looking at this particular playground with council some time ago. And part of that exercise was that they actually put forward a deed to work with council in terms of this particular project, both in terms of the design and construction of it, and in exercising additional funds to help support a project of this scale and nature. And as I understand it, I believe the council agreed to sign this deed and work accordingly. So that's part of the reason why we're going down the process of not following the traditional procurement process.
Thank you for that, Director. My comment is about the tender part also, but then given that the way this grant system has worked in the past for everything else, we seem to go and tell every company how much money we have and then ask them to give us a tender, and they tender within $1 of what we've told them we have. So I don't know if that really worked that well for us either, but this company that the people who gave us the presentation and currently just had one of their parks opened in Wagga, to great reviews, I might add. And I haven't been there personally, but I've spoken to people who have and read about them. So I'm comfortable with the level of professionalism that the company has shown and have the ability to deliver. So I sit very comfortably there, but I do take on board the points that have been mentioned, both against and for this recommendation. I think unless Councillor Armstrong?
Just a question. In terms of the location within Tresillian Park, there is what I'm going to call the low area within the riparian boundaries, and there is the high area back up towards the road. Which one of the two locations is the preferred location, given that in 2010 the bridge, some 60 metres from that location, was entirely washed away, and the water in Burrangong Creek came up to the level of the sewer line, about 8 metres above the current water level. If we put a $500,000 playground in there, that happens again, we probably find it somewhere at Stock and Bingala or thereabouts.
I asked the question, Mr Mayor, what happened to the swimming pool?
It's well above that water level.
Councillor Armstrong?
Question, Councillor Rolls?
Can I just make a comment?
Comment, Councillor Rolls.
I think that has been taken into account in the last, when we were citing it, and I take your point that it's not ideal, but none of the places were ideal, and I think you pointed out before that Arboretum Park, which was also on the agenda, was certainly not in your scope, and rightly so. I think in the planning it has been taken into account. So any activities that are carried out in that area of the park will be activities that will not end up downstream. And can I just add for Councillor Wallace that we were thinking of him as well, if everybody notes that this is not a new playground. So we are not adding to another playground in the area, but we are looking to upgrade and make accessible to everybody. And personally, I would not like to think that it would be ever included into the pool area, because that would exclude many people from using that park.
Thank you. Look, we've had...
Mr Mayor, I'll just note that we're not in committee.
Just about to make a comment.
Nonetheless, I will make a comment. Perhaps the existing hardened tennis courts could be considered.
Councillor Flannery, I was just about to make the comment that we are not in committee. I've had speakers for, speakers against, and I haven't heard anything about an amendment to the recommendation, so I'm putting the recommendation. All those in favour? Aye. Again. Carried. Thank you, councillors. Next item, which is item.
Mr Mayor, can I ask the staff to produce a site plan at the next council meeting for general consumption by council?
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Staff take that on board.
Through the chair. Yep. Thank you. Sure.
Thank you. Item 18239, endorsement to engage consultant for Lambing Flat Chinese Tribute Garden. The report is there in front of you, councillors, with a recommendation.
Move the recommendations.
Moved Councillor Manchester, thank you. Seconded Councillor Walker. Any discussion on the matter? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Again, so be it. Thank you. Item 18240, young tennis courts, detailed design. There's a report there, councillors, and a recommendation there, and I'm told that the Acting Director of Infrastructure would like to speak to the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, one of the reasons why I wanted to bring it to your attention is that nearly at the conclusion of this report being prepared, the Young Tennis Association was advised that they were unsuccessful in terms of their $5 million grant to develop the tennis precinct as they had originally planned. We had discussions with them as we were finalising the report and agreed to proceed on the basis that we would submit the report in the meantime. I have been informed that they will be having a meeting on Monday at 2 p.m. in the offices here to talk about the way forward and look at how they can use the balance of the money that has been put aside for the upgrade and redevelopment of the site. To date, we've spent something like about $30,000 doing the work in terms of doing the investigations on the project in the basis that they were looking to head down the path. The indications are at the moment they will be looking at probably going down the path of resurfacing the existing courts and refurbishing lights so that they can make the best use of the existing facilities. But at this stage that has not been confirmed until they've had their meeting. So the suggestion is that we would come back with an updated report once we know what the outcome of that is. What I have worked out as part of the work that my staff have been doing is that it appears that we would need in the order of about $800,000 to do the sort of refurbishment. So that'll be something that will be discussed with them on Monday when they have their next association meeting.
So you have the recommendation. Is the recommendation in front of me?
So the recommendation can say it as it is, but I think that the intention is that we will be coming back with an updated report as to where we head once they've had that meeting.
Thank you for that, Director.
Mr. Mayor, can I move an amendment?
Councillor, we haven't been moved or seconded yet, the recommendation. So we're going to move it a second for the recommendation.
An amendment then.
Pardon?
I'm going to suggest an amendment.
Yep. We can have an amendment to the recommendation. Councillor Armstrong.
Council defer the matter pending further discussions with the Young Tennis Club and reconsider or consider it an alternative at its next meeting.
I would concur with you, Councillor Armstrong, and I'm pretty sure you'll get a seconder for that. Yeah. Councillor Walker, thank you. Now, is it up on the board? No. My batteries are flat in my TV.
Defer the matter?
Defer the matter?
Until the next one, with the Young Tennis Club, and a report to be supplied to the November ordinary meeting. To the Chair, does that sound right?
Councillors, we have a recommendation, a motion on the board by Councillor Armstrong. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded Councillor Rolls. No discussion or conversation. I'll put that. All those in favour? Again, so be it. Thank you, councillors. Item 18241 is the BOOROWA tennis courts, detailed design. Reports there, councillors, and then the recommendation is there.
Question through you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Tuckerman.
I note the tennis club would like to have the cement base, and it's been recommended that we have the asphalt base. Is it possible to get, if we put it out to tender, to get both costings on each of those options?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, it is possible to do both. It just means a wee bit more work in terms of the design for the pavement accordingly, that's all.
Yeah, through the Mayor, the Director of Infrastructure, I concur with Councillor Tuckerman. In the paper, if you read it, says, using a concrete base is preferred by the club. However, much additional funding may be required. So my question is, do we know how much the additional funding will be? And if not, shouldn't we find out?
Through you, Mr Mayor, the actual difference in cost is quite considerable. You're looking at the cheapest option for asphalt is $277, and it's highlighted on page 196, through to a concrete base option of $409. And then you'll notice that the last item on that table is talking about the club's preferred option, which takes it right through to $486,000. And we've only got a budget of $350 in total, so that's where the issues are. We're trying to actually keep this project within budget, and you'll see that the first three lines of table 1 on page 196 managed to keep it with or close to within budget.
And through you, Mr Mayor, and I guess the issue with the young tennis courts now has thrown a bit of a spanner in the works, because we are hoping to gain some efficiencies in combining the two. So that makes it a little bit difficult.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the actual surfacing cost would be you'd be able to get some efficiencies through the surfacing, because we wouldn't be we'd be looking at some of the surfacing materials, but not necessarily in terms of the other construction.
Mr Mayor, a question for the Director or Acting Director. What are the reasons for the preference of concrete versus asphalt in the rubberised or the sport acrylic surface?
Look, at the end of the day, I don't know whether the club. I think the club's got just a preference in terms of concrete. I believe both services are just as effective, but concrete is quite a bit more expensive to construct. I think from their perspective, they see that it's possibly got a slightly longer life. But again, if the actual surfacing is maintained properly, then there shouldn't be a lot of difference.
Through you, Mr Mayor, a question for the
Councillor Tuckerman.
Through you. Were the soils and the type of soils a consideration when they made that decision around the concrete?
We've done geotech investigations on the site, and in undertaking those geotechnical investigations, consideration has to be made whether it's asphalt or concrete, to make sure that the actual surface will remain stable for the life of the structure. It just means that you need to design things differently based on what the soil type is and the actual load-bearing capacities are.
Okay, I don't know if that answered the question or not, Councillor Tuckerman. I didn't think it. Anyway, sorry, there's a timer on. I don't know how I've set that timer when I was timing the speakers in council. I apologise, council. It's not cool. The General Manager's got a comment before I do something with this.
Yes,
is that correct?
Chair, you still haven't got to move on a second.
I know that, yep. I'm aware of that. We took the questions, yep. All good, thank you. So, councillors, with those questions on mine, do I have a mover and a seconder for that recommendation? And the recommendation to me is a bit colluded, because we wish to advise on either 1, 2, or 1, 2 and 3, or 2 and 3. Is that how I'm reading this?
All three.
Proceed with the design for a concrete base and proceed with an asphalt base, and all three. Okay. Have I got a mover and a seconder for the recommendation? Well, I thought we did, but I'm just informed that it's...
I'll move too.
Well, that's back to my point, Councillor Armstrong. What is staff asking us to consider? That is my question.
Mr Mayor, I'll move point 2 as the motion.
There's Councillor Armstrong has moved point 2 to become the motion. Provide with design using an asphalt base which may be achievable within the budget or would require considerable less additional funding. So,
And just a question through you, Mr Mayor, that includes lighting, and that's the full kit and caboodle, is it?
The 4 options there, but that's your
Through you, Mr Mayor, look, I think at the end of the day, one of the things we can do is either we can actually cost both options. We can cost the concrete option or the asphalt option. The only issue will be that in doing so we're going to expend a bit more effort in the design works. The issue really comes down to, based on what you see in terms of Table 1, you've got costings that show that what you can achieve within the limit. I appreciate that the club's preferred option is to include the concrete base and the LED lighting, but again, that's in excess of $100,000 above the limit. So we can either get a price and go to design on options and then consider those options at the end, or make a recommendation that we only proceed with what we think is achievable at this point in time.
Question through you, Mr Mayor. Do we have any idea on what the costs would be if we did go out to tender for both options?
In terms of the additional costs, it wouldn't be a lot, probably $3,000 or $4,000 probably in terms of pavement designs.
Have we had a seconder for the motion?
No, we haven't had a second for Councillor Armstrong's motion to move dot point 2. Did he? I'm sorry, I take that back. I didn't tick. I'm very sorry. So there's a mover and a seconder for the motion to be that council proceed with design using an asphalt base, which may be achievable within the budget or require considerable less additional funding. Is that correct?
I'll foreshadow an alternate motion.
I've got a foreshadowed motion. Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor with
Through
Councillor
you, Mr
Armstrong.
Mayor, can we hear the alternate motion?
The alternate motion,
We
Mr.
can, well, I took the first one as a motion, as an amendment to what was there. So if that's an amendment, I probably should deal with that before I take the second one. I'll be corrected and I'm happy to go either way. But I believe that that's how I took the first motion.
Mr Mayor, I didn't interpret that manner. This is the bullseye motion as far as I was concerned. You picked 1, 2 or 3, and 2 was the one that I moved.
Okay.
At this particular stage, 2 has been seconded, and I believe that there should be discussion on it. If there's to be an amendment moved, then the amendment probably should be discussed now.
It's been foreshadowed. We can only deal with one at a time. So can we deal with this one? We'll take Councillor Flannery's amendment and we'll start from there.
Mr Mayor, to try and make it not too wordy, that council seek tenders on an asphalt base and concrete base.
I don't think anyone's writing. Just you better start again, please, Councillor Flannery. We ready to go? No.
Council seek tenders for the Burrowah tennis courts.
You're not. The gentleman is going to write it down for you, Tony, then we'll relay it to the pencil, I think. They're having trouble.
Council seek tenders for the Burrowah tennis courts for an asphalt base or concrete base with acrylic surface and LED lighting, inclusive of fencing, all necessary fencing, and full stop. And I note that LED lighting is significantly cheaper to run than halogen lighting, is my understanding, so that's why I'm specifying LED lighting.
Thank you for that, Councillor Flannery. So we'll get that put on the board, please, as an amendment. Councillor Flannery moved the amendment. Did we have a seconder for the amendment?
Happy to second, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tuckerman.
Clarification.
Director has a question.
Through you, Mr Mayor, can I just check when you refer to acrylic surface, you're talking about a rubberised sport acrylic surface or a basic acrylic surface, please?
Rubberised has been mentioned, so that better be noted in the amendment, please.
My understanding is the difference in the number of coats. Is that correct?
No, it's a different surfacing system.
Well, yes, rubberised acrylic.
Someone, we right?
Yes.
Thank you for that. Okay, there's an amendment been put and seconded on the board. Is the original mover of the motion happy to accept that amendment? That's the first thing I'll ask. To his. So you won't accept that as your motion? And you won't accept that amendment to your... I'll take that as a no. So, would you like to speak to your amendment, Councillor Flannery, or reserve your right?
I took it at council will get tenders and then accept the tender that's appropriate based on the money we have available. So this is basically putting it out the tender.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Would anyone like to speak against that amendment that's up there?
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I seconded the number 2 amendment, but I'm surprised we didn't get these quotes initially. So that's a no for me.
So that's a no. Okay, councillors. Okay, councillors. Please, councillors. Would anyone else like to speak for the amendment? Would anyone else like to speak against the amendment? If not, I will put the amendment that's on the board. All those in favour? Aye. Again. This amendment is carried. That amendment now becomes the motion. We'll now put as the motion. All those in favour? Again. Carried. Thank you, councillors. These grants and these funding is sure heavy work. 18242, endorsement to expend funds and establish committee for the MURRUMBURRAH flood study. Councillors, the report there's in front of you, and there's a recommendation there.
So moved, Mr.
Councillor Manchester.
It's been something we've talked about for a long time. Just one question. The carryover funds of $32,000, I believe there were some funds from Sutherland Shire.
100,000.
No, 25,000. 25,000 from Sutherland Shire was earmarked for this also. I'm just wondering whether that's part of this 32 or that's still sitting somewhere.
Thank you for that, Councillor Manchester. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Walker. Any questions or debate on the matter?
Just to bring to your attention, number 4 is to nominate a councillor.
To be a member of the Floodplain Risk Management Committee. Thank you very much, Councillor Tuckerman. Do we have any nominations to be part of that?
I'd like to nominate Councillor Manchester.
Accept that nomination, Councillor Manchester. That being the case, dot point 4 will note that we endorse Councillor Manchester to be the councillor on that floodplain risk management committee. Please. With that in mind, I need a seconder. Did I have a mover and a seconder? And John Walker was a seconder. Thank you. All those in favour? Again? I know I digress, but just on that note, with that question asked by Councillor Manchester, I believe it would be in Council's interest if a copy of all the cash reserves that Council hold is provided to all councillors. Staff might take that on note, please. Item 18244. No, sorry, have I missed one? I have. Item 18243, Hilltops Works Report. In front of you, councillors, and the recommendation is there.
Mr Mayor, just a question from the Director, a question to the Director with regard to Neil Street. Parks and Gardens, or the area in between, we didn't ever get an answer on the water system and the operation of the water system there.
I'll take that on notice if I can.
It was from about 3 months ago.
Neil Street, is it?
Last summer they were watered by hand. I was advised that the watering system was operational again by the Director. I was made aware by others that it wasn't operational. Can we be formally advised as to the state of, before we get into summer, of the automatic watering system in Neil Street?
So does Council understand what Councillor Flannery is asking for? Okay. Council staff, I meant. Yep, okay. Thank you. Any other comments or questions in regard?
Question to the Director of Infrastructure. Just in regard to the issue of bridges there, I note that there's Crowther Bridge replacement scenic road 95% complete. Has Council undertaken any further bridge analysis on bridges, concrete bridges, with a similar construction to that of Wamwadumba Bridge?
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes we have. I'm waiting the final results of the 4 that have been tested in the last week and a half.
Thank you. Councillor Tuckerman?
Yes, through you, Mr Mayor, to the Director of Infrastructure. Just a query in regards to the roadside tree maintenance. That was done by a contractor?
Which page are we on, sorry?
It's 204. Eastern, under Parks and Gardens. And the reason I ask is that, and it would be good to know what the contractors were asked to do, on GALONG Lane, the trees were lopped, which is a dirt road, for about 500 metres. It didn't do all the lane, so I'm just wondering, how does that happen and why does that happen?
Can I take that on notice?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Mr Mayor, just a couple of other questions for the Director, or indeed for the General Manager. We don't seem to get any, given the Weeds Authority has now been incorporated into the general operations of Shire, there doesn't seem to be any reports of any nature on the works of the Weeds Committee. I note that roadside spraying's nearly been non-existent this spring, and I'm advised that the crews started work this week. Now that the ryegrass and oats is about 4 feet high, wild oats is about 4 feet high. At a meeting held prior to the long service leave, at a meeting held at the Weeds Committee prior to the relevant staff member taking long service leave, it was recommended that private contractors do the work in the absence of adequate staff to carry out the work. It clearly hasn't happened. It's not detailed anywhere in the works report. Could we be provided at the next meeting on the state of the Weeds Committee, what work has carried out and what work hasn't been carried out, what staff members are being employed to carry out the work, what funds have been expended to carry out the work? Could I also be advised of what work lists Cunningar Road reconstruction as construction projects for planned work from October to November? What planned work is going to happen? We do seem to have planned work occurring right at the point of harvest.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery.
Through the Chair, I'll certainly take your questions on notice and work to get that information for you. Just in relation to weed spraying, we are in drought, and spraying in particularly dry periods is ineffective, and that may indeed account for a lack of activity. That said, my understanding too of the current configuration of the weed staff, and certainly any advice coming back to you will give you some background on this, is that casual staff were always employed by the previous authority in relation to a lot of the contract spraying that occurred, and that council itself, staff actually mainly is focused on inspection and regulatory side of the weeds activity, and that indeed what we are using is contract staff, casual contract staff in relation to that, but certainly I can provide that information to you in a comprehensive format to assist you there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Some of what you're saying is correct. Unfortunately, you're going to open up a can of worms when you start looking at the situation. Casual staff were employed. They were almost full-time casual. Council failed to offer them full-time positions, and they've all now set up their own businesses. So we're left with capital equipment which we can't utilise because we have no staff. And there were opportunities to carry out roadside spraying before it became too dry. Unfortunately, what I predicted has happened and didn't occur.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. As the General Manager said, that will be looked into. So the report's there. If there's any other further questions, I have a mover and a seconder for the report. Thank you. I will put the recommendation. All those in favour? Again. Second is Councillor Walker. Okay, item 244, the action summary report. And the recommendation there is note the status of council resolutions from the action plan and endorse the removal of completed items from the action plan. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that report? Move Councillor Horton. Seconded Councillor Rolls. Thank you very much. Questions or debate on that matter? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Again. So be it. Thank you. Item 18245, Stronger Communities and Stronger Country Communities Project Update. In front of us, councillors, and the recommendation is there. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Move Councillor Horton. Seconded Councillor Stadmiller. Thank you.
Any questions, Mr Mayor?
Question, Councillor Stadmiller.
Just a query regarding the updating of the funding. When does the money actually arrive in Hilltops' possession, such as the racecourse money that was announced at the Kite Festival?
Look, through the Chair, thank you, Councillor Stadmiller, for that question. We haven't received the funding agreement yet. We've only just received the announcement. But certainly, if history is anything to go by, as soon as that funding agreement is signed, the money does actually is forthcoming pretty quickly. We certainly can advise you in relation to that.
That may be in contrast to the first round then, from what I was told. Councillor O'Connor.
Sorry, through you, Mr Mayor, to the Director of Community. There's an error with the Harden VIC and the museum, and also there's there's still not any detailed spending. Just to know, to find out where stuff has actually been spent. Like, we've got a total figure or what's been allocated, but we don't actually know what it's for.
Through the Chair, I do recall we agreed to provide you with transactional detail. We'll do that.
Thank you for that. Councillor Tuckerman.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just in regards to the caravan parks, we received we attended a meeting by the consultant in regards to the reports. I'm just wondering, there was some urgent work that needed to be done. Has that been completed? And Council was then waiting for a report. I'm just wondering when that will be coming to Council.
Thank you for that, Councillor Tuckerman. Who would like to speak to that, staff?
Following the presentation that was done where there was some urgent works being looked at, I understand those urgent works have been addressed. There has subsequently been a condition assessment done of both caravan parks, and there was some work currently being done to look at what the upgrade costs are required in terms of addressing some of the condition assessment items that have been identified. That work is nearly complete, with the intention that it will come back to Council in a workshop for a discussion on that issue, and as part of that it'll give us an opportunity to talk about the money that has already been allocated for the camp kitchens, because there is quite a reasonable amount of asset maintenance and work that needs to be done over and above those urgent items that we talked about that have been addressed.
Okay, Councillor Flannery.
Mr. Mayor, question for the relevant director. I'm not too sure if it's the acting director or Director Finesse. The solar power for council facilities, it was noted that one of the roofs, I can't remember which, was probably structurally unsound to hold solar panels. It was discussed at a meeting, and then I think I mentioned that perhaps the savings from the electricity that we would not have to purchase could go towards the roof reconstruction. I was told that was operational, but the commentary here basically ignores any of the matters that were discussed when we were considering which building solar panels might go on, and it was suggested by Councillor Greg Armstrong to me recently that perhaps we should actually do what Woolworths have done and put solar panels in the car park for getting the roofs. So could that be considered as an alternative?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we're currently going through a two-stage process in terms of doing the concept design of each of the sites that were identified in the previous report. Part of that concept design is to look at the structural integrity of all of the sites that are being considered, to verify whether that is appropriate, and also to confirm the actual costs. Once those tenders have been received, there'll be a report coming back to Council to consider those tenders and the way forward. Yes, we have looked at the solar panel car park arrangement, and that's something that's not been forgotten about as an option as we move forward.
Yeah, through the Mayor to the Director for Infrastructure, at one of our council's meeting I asked a question about the possibility of having solar on the building at the Harden swimming pool, and I received an affirmative nod. So my question is this additional installation included in the specialist electrical consultant's input to the tender project, for the tender documents?
Look, I need to just take that on notice and confirm that, because I can't recall seeing that in the document, so I'll have to check and come back to you.
Thank you.
I just have one question in relation to the report, Mr. Mayor, in relation to Blackguard Gully. Just some query in relation to the expenditure thus far and how the tenderer was. I assume there was a tender, but we've already spent $82,000, and we're just about to have a project inception meeting. I'm wondering how we've spent $82,000 already.
Can I take that on notice?
The same applies for Harden Caravan Park.
Yes, look, I think it's pretty evident that at the last meeting we asked for some more details with these reports, and I think you can get the feel in the room at the moment that councillors are asking the same questions that we've been asking for a while, so I would ask the staff take that on notice and find out where the expenditure has gone on some of the projects and have a bit more of a detailed idea of where we're up to, as opposed to coming back and saying we're in design, we're looking at it, we're looking at where we're up to. Time is getting away from us, so, and our community expect to see a bit more. And I know we're resource short, but we'll work on that. So I've had a mover and a seconder for that report and the recommendation. No other questions or discussion? I'll put that. Councillor Flannery.
Just point of clarification. As part of moving and seconding the report, can we ensure that the questions that are asked are responded to? So we're not just accepting the report, we get...
I would like to think that would be a taken, Councillor Flannery, but... All those in favour? Aye. Aye. Again, thank you, councillors. 18246 has been dealt with. It brings us to correspondence. It's actions nil, information nil. It's the media releases. They're attached and the recommendation is there. I've had a move and a second for that. Move Councillor Armstrong, seconded Councillor O'Connor, thank you. All those in favour? Again, so thank you. That takes us to Council Committee reports, and we have a couple for action. One is from the Maringo Community Association, and the recommendation is that the recommendations contained in the Maringo Community Association 24th September be read and noted and placed on the action plan for action.
I move it.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Seconded Councillor Horton. All those in favour? Again, so be it, thank you. The second one is from the Jugiong Advancement Group, 13th September 2018, and the recommendation is that the recommendations contained in the Jugiong Advancement Group, 13th September 2018, be read and noted and placed on the action plan for action. Moved Councillor Horton, seconded Councillor O'Connor.
Mr Mayor, just some questions on the notes in the minutes of the meeting that Jugiong Advancement Group have considerable funds, and there's discussion about, I guess, building on those funds. I really think Council needs to adopt a use it or lose it approach to funding. It's not the intent of Council, I don't believe, to be continually adding to funds of whatever committee unless they're actually going to expend that money on the necessary projects.
Thank you, Councillor.
I concur with Councillor Flannery on that, and I would make the point that it would be nice to be able to read those minutes, but unfortunately on the iPad they come through as a blank page.
Okay, so that is noted for staff to take into consideration in regards to Jugiong Advancement Group, in regards to those fundings. Taking that on board. We've had a mover and a seconder. All those in favour? Again, so be it. Thank you, councillors. That takes me over to... I've lost my sticker. There we go. There we are. 18247, which is a closed council, so would have someone to move and second that recommendation. We go into closed council. Move Councillor Manchester, seconded Councillor O'Connor. Thank you. All those in favour? Aye again. We're in closed council